Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Whoa, it moves. OK, I will dive right in. OK, let's talk about the reality of actually building a unicorn. Sacha, what do people misunderstand the most about Glovo's journey to unicorn stardom?
So I think one of the misconceptions about Glovo, for those who don't know us, we were founded in Spain, in Barcelona 10 years ago. We actually raised nearly €1 billion in funding from VCs. Obviously, at the time, I think still today, probably the largest amount raised by a Spanish company. And everyone assumed that we were rock stars at fundraising and everything just by the numbers. But actually, it's probably the most difficult thing we encountered at Glovo. We were in an extremely competitive space, and we were operating in a number of countries. We launched Latin America, Europe, Central Eastern Europe, and we found really strong competition everywhere. And all of our competitors were raising a lot more money than us and before us. And I think that's one of the things, and we nearly closed down the business 3 or 4 times without running out of money. As we're so competitive, to compete, we had to invest so much money that in the end, we were actually fundraising, literally, closing rounds either every 9 or 12 months. We actually were running out of alphabets with our series. We got to Series F. So I think that's one of the conceptions that, how media talk about the rounds and how successful and everything, and the reality is it was probably our Achilles heel. I think there's 3 reasons why that probably happened. We were late, so most of our competitors had already fundraised. Second, the large funds for the size of the rounds we're doing, who were interested in our industry, had already chosen their winners, and Glovo wasn't one of them. So every round we had to look for a new lead investor, and that struggles, because anyone who's done any fundraising, the key element is get your lead investor who will decide the round, and then it's easy to get other VCs to follow on. So generally, I think that's one of the things from outside that's perceived as, wow, amazing story, and it was super tough.
Enrique, so the rapid growth of letgo, could you tell us a little bit about the behind the scenes?
Yeah, so thank you very much. I mean, letgo, everything was impressively fast, I have to say. And it was a mix of things. Like, we were the right guys in the right place at the right moment. And our metrics from day one, they were exceptionally good. And we were very lucky that everything that could go wrong or well ended up going well, which that was the case for the first, I will say, 3 years. And that's very exceptional, and it was a mix within the market, the fact that the apps were new, and every internet moved from the desktop to our pockets thanks to the apps, and everybody was willing to try new apps for new things. But and that's what you see from outside, that is true, but also from inside, there was a lot of stress. Everything was kind of a mess, as it is in every startup. And we were fighting with lots of competitors that had the same idea. And at the end, this was a question of being innovative and execution, right? So before letgo, I founded another company called Captalis. It was very small, especially compared with letgo. And at the end, it was like an okay startup. It was not a big success. And I remember the first years, like, we were hiring like crazy. At the end of the first 12 months, we were like 70 people in the team. And I was thinking, man, it's true we are much more successful. Like, we're raising a lot of money and valuation is going up. But the feeling that I had as a founder was exactly the same as in my first startup that took a lot of time to scale, right? So at the end, it's not so different. It's a brand to be a unicorn, but it's messy and it's like any other startup.
Yeah, I would like to ask both of you, because you're both in the public eye, how do you feel the media narratives affected you as founders?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on that point, about our fundraising, that, media perceived that as, a company that was, going out to Europe, talking to the best investors, getting funding, and was a reference when in fact under the scenes, or behind the scenes, sorry, it was totally the contrary. We were, I remember one of our rounds, we got, I think, 105 no's before we got a yes from VCs. That's like with the rucksack going around Europe and trying to get, so the reality does perceive the company a different way. In our case as well, for Glovo in Spain, those who live here, we've pretty been media-centric the last 5 or 6 years, mainly around, the concept of gig economy, big tech. Those who've, been in the industry a long time, technology about a decade ago or big tech was perceived as positive and actually moving the right way. And there's been a turn with a lot of media saying big tech is dangerous, we should be careful. And I think Glovo was perceived as part of that. And generally, we've had a tough time with media in Spain, to be honest, for certainly the last 4 or 5 years. But hopefully we're turning that around. We'll show them we're good guys.
Yeah, our case is a little bit different because our headquarters were in Barcelona, but our main operation was in the US and in Turkey, right? So because of that, we decided to be a very low profile in Spain. Like we were not operating here, so it didn't make much sense to do PR and to be on the media. So we tried to avoid every time a journalist called us, we said, no, we don't want to talk, right? It makes it a little bit harder to recruit good talent, but at the end, when they know what we were doing, it end up happening, no? For me personally, from an ego perspective, right? Like us as founders, we're always fighting with ego, right? You want to take the right decisions and being very, not be passionate about your decisions, be very rational. And being on the media, I think that it ends up affecting you a lot, no? Then I moved to New York, and I was there, and we were in the media there. But New York is so big, and there are so many entrepreneurs. Like, just a unicorn is one more, so it didn't affect us, I will say.
Very insightful, thank you. So now I would like to ask you more about the juicy questions that people are wondering about. Enrique, a near collapse moment where you felt like, we might not make it. Yeah,
of course. There are many of those, I have to say, no? Because that's another learning, right? You think on unicorns, and especially when we can hear and share a story, right? Like we already did it, big companies. And it's like, wow, these guys are successful. But the truth is that every startup, it doesn't matter how big it is, it has good and bad moments. And you have to like that pressure and to the fact that there is always uncertainty because you have competitors and at some point you can lose what you build, right? That affects you personally a lot, I will say. But I have to say at the same time that I always had the faith that this will work. Like I'm super positive, no? And I think there is something else there. And in everything I start, like now I'm building a venture capital called Plus Partners. And it was the same. The first day I start, it was, okay, we're going to raise the money. This is going to happen, and we're going to be successful, no? And that attitude, a positive attitude, that it tends to be a little bit irrational, but it really helps you to work hard and not lose much time thinking on what happened if this fails, no?
Thank you. Sacha, a pivotal moment where you felt like, okay, we need to change gears, and that forced you into a decision shift.
Yes, so today we operate in 22 countries, Southern Europe, Central Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and Africa, so quite diverse. But we've actually launched and built in over 40 countries. And I think one of the biggest moments and most important was after launching in Southern Europe, our next stop was Latin America, and we launched in 11 countries in Latin America. And it was super tough. We had 3 really strong competitors. So there's 4 companies, all very well funded. Again, all of our competitors were a little bit more funded than us. I think I can remember we raised 150 million one round, and our competitor in LATAM raised 800 million the next day. So it's like, great. And we had the opportunity to sell the business, which is really tough because we had a great team there, really believed in Glovo, and it's a tough, more for the human part of it. But we got a good offer for the business, and we were just beginning to really grow in Central Eastern Europe, and it was going really well for us. And we decided to sell the business. It was a good exit for the business because we made 3x on our investment, and we used that capital to invest in Eastern Europe and take leadership there. And I think it was absolutely the right decision. Our 3 competitors are still fighting it out in LATAM, and more coming in there. And I think it was a very good decision. And that was probably one of the moments in the company. And it's almost it isn't failure, but it feels like failure. When you're trying to win a market and you're competing consistently with competitors and you have to leave. It feels like we're throwing in the towel, but it was a great decision, and it allowed us to lead in a different part of the world. Otherwise, maybe, literally, we might not be here today. We've had a lot of decisions like that could have changed the company and could have meant that maybe Glovo didn't exist.
Thank you. And you just mentioned the human element, and I would like to know how both of you, on a personal level, deal with uncertainty and chaos, because it can be quite stressful.
Yeah, that's the point, no? How to deal with the stress as founders. There is one thing that I like so much, and it's the fact that every event I go now, at some point people talk about how relevant it is to take care of ourselves as founders and not only of the company, which is very different from the official speech when Sacha and myself, we started our companies. No? You need to find an equilibrium. This is going to take many, many years. And you need to feel well, and you need to find a balance. For me, the first 2 years that you start a company, it's impossible to have a work-life balance. Absolutely impossible. You need to assume it, that you need to tell your relatives, your friends, everyone, don't count on me. I'm not going to spend time with you guys. I'm going to focus on my project. But after that, there are things like meditation, spiritual life, sleep at least 7 hours, eat well, have social life outside of your company, right? You should not be talking of your company all the day to everyone, right? And those things really help, and it makes a difference, no? And if you want to create real value for the long term, at least it's going to take 5, 6, 7 years, and you cannot be on the very peak of stress for 7 years, no? It's super hard to prioritize, but I also think that is the right thing to do, and you need to do an exercise to remember it and to be surrounded by people that tell you, hey, you should take care of yourself. That helps a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think over time you become immune. So this Glovo isn't the first company I've built. I've built a few things before, and you just realize that it's never really as bad as it seems, and at the same time, when things are going really well, it's never as good as it seems. You need to keep your feet on the ground. Generally, I'm pretty good with stress. I don't really, that's in line with that, But you have to put things into perspective. That's the truth. It's not the end of the world. And then you have to do, in my opinion, and some people are better than that than others, you've got all your issues during the day. Some are good, some are bad. But if the bad ones, you just isolate them and you still continue focusing on the good ones. There's a tendency sometimes to just really focus on trying to fix something, and basically you need to isolate and get on with stuff. It's a famous founder thing, and I think we've all said this, but if I'd known all the problems I would have had building the company, I would never have started. And that's a reality of any company, I think, today, is you're going to encounter so many things that if you knew that at the beginning, you'd definitely not have started it. So in my personal case, I think I've just become immune, and we have problems every day. Today, they're bigger than they were last year, and last year we had problems every day, and they're bigger than they were. Problems are bigger today, and you still have to just get on and fix it. But there's always a way. Maybe that's a bit unique, my way of looking at it, but I really, and I personally enjoy challenges, and especially when you can fix them. So, and I've got a great co-founder who we, complement each other. It's great. That's why I think, companies, when they're starting out, I would like it when there's 2 or 3 co-founders. It's not necessarily that they're all equal value, but when things get tough, it's good to have somebody next to you to handle. And one can be super optimistic, and the other one can be a bit down, and then vice versa. And I think that's complementary. I think that's super important to have a team. This is not done alone.
Thank you. Enrique, how do you stay grounded through the growth of a company?
Sorry,
how do you stay grounded through the growth?
Yeah. I mean, again, probably it's kind of the same message, right? But first, you know that you're going to, I mean, as entrepreneur, if you're successful, at some point you're going to have a problem with your ego. And the fact that you know it helps so much. I mean, because the biggest problem is when, no, I don't have ego, and I will never care about that, I will not do things to control it. That's really a challenge, because at some point, probably, ego takes control of you. There are other things that helps a lot, and I learned during the journey, and I recommend every entrepreneur, like having a coach, right? Like having someone that in an honesty way is going to tell you the things that nobody else wants to tell you on a personal level. That helps so much, and it helps a lot also in the relationship with your team and with your partners, right, with your co-founders. And then the third point I will say is that I'm just the kind of founder that I need to stop thinking of my company at some point, which is super hard, because when you are taking a shower, when you're in the weekends, when you are traveling, when you're with your kids, you are always thinking of the problems that you have on your company, right? But I make an effort not to do it, and the best way of doing that is to spend time with friends. I mean, sometimes with family also helps, it's difficult, but with friends, if you are having fun, traveling, going for whatever, sport, whatever, it really helps, no? And it's good to remember who you were before doing this, and knowing that this is going to last for a few years, and that's it. And again, you're back to be Enrique, and not the founder of letgo, right? And that really works very, very well.
Okay, thank you. And Sacha, what did you learn about leadership through the high growth years with Glovo?
So yeah, I mean, one thing is stay grounded, but not just the founders, the company. There can be a lot of hype about fast-growing companies, and again, underneath it's super tough. You have competitors who are doing just as well or sometimes better than you. So I think keeping everyone grounded. We actually we spent a lot of time and a lot of effort on our core values, our culture. We did that super early, created some core values, which literally have not changed over the last 10 years, even though, you know, now we're 3,000 plus employees in the office and 100,000 couriers are delivering today. But we kept those core values. One of those is obviously being grounded, being humble. And I think those are super important to have as North Stars, and we use them on hiring. You know, there's experience or certain things you can decide on somebody joining, but if they're not core values, you don't perceive them being core values, then it's a definite no. It doesn't really matter who you are. And I think that, as a leadership, helps you guide the boat a little bit, or guide the ship. And yeah, I think often there's not enough time spent by companies on really. And by the way, culture is not. There's not a right and a wrong. We have our culture, right? And there's other companies out there who are doing incredibly well with a totally different culture, and it's their culture, and that's fantastic. Now, a great example is we're actually office first, right? Which is just so we believe, you know, that we build culture in a company by meeting people face to face, and we have 3 days in the office, and we really believe in that. But then you see a company around you called Revolut, who's probably the fastest growing tech company in Europe and amazing, is absolutely remote. I mean, literally, they meet up once a year. There's hardly any, and they're doing an amazing job. You know, they're an incredible example, and just shows that there's not a right way. So we're being very fundamental on building culture and maintaining that. And the funny thing is, as you know, we were exited to Delivery Hero a couple of years ago, and they're a big holding group, Germany, publicly traded company, and they have 6, 7 brands across the world. Glovo is one of them. They actually incorporated our core values as the group core values. I think mainly because we've dedicated a little bit more time to those than the other brands and everything. But so that was quite inspiring, that the whole group is sort of aligned with how we built our culture.
Thank you. Okay, one question. Did you ever think about walking away?
I have to say no. I was very stressful. You know, something very personal, and And when we meet among entrepreneurs and we share stories, like almost every entrepreneur at some point in their life deserve to be, he really wanted to be sick, ill, like spend time in bed not doing anything. I have a reason why not to work and rest because I'm super tired, I'm exhausted. I had that feeling lots of times, but never quit. I mean, the thing with a company is that it is the culture you have, it somehow reflects your personality, you are super connected with the team, there is a vision, and you are here for the long term, right? You are here to fight and to change the world. And it's something so embedded, like that you feel so much, no? It's not rational. It's that you know you have to do it, right? So quit is never an option. Yeah.
No, no. I think no. As long as I'm really enjoying it and I'm learning. And I think the third point is the most important. It's not about me walking away. It's actually, am I being useful in the company? Which probably won't be forever. And I need to be open to that. And and I think we need to know when we're really giving value in the different stages of a company, and when you stop doing that. And but no. I mean, it's tough, and it's been amazing. It still is. It's super passionate about it.
That's good to hear, and I think it's very motivating for all the founders that are here. I just want to ask for some founder wisdom, if you will. Enrique, what is one thing you'd do differently if you could go back to the beginning? If you could go back to the beginning.
I will say, you know what? I will take it less serious and have more fun. That's for sure the advantage. Because at the end, you're going to work the same number of hours. The problems are going to be the same. But if you have, and it was one of our values, no? Like to have fun. It depends very much on an attitude, right? And it impacts the way you interact with the people. Of course, you feel the responsibility, but you can do all the things having lots of fun and enjoying the moment, no? So that would be my advice to myself 15 years ago, like have fun in the journey.
Okay,
I absolutely hate that question, and I've been asked it a few times, and it's like I always, after thinking about it, you should prepare an answer for this because you give such a lame answer. And I normally say, I'll say, really, we made so many mistakes that you'd like to rectify, but actually, those mistakes are probably the reason we're here today and how quickly we rectified from those. And we're here, right? We survived, and to be honest, the story of Glovo is survival. And we're here today, and it's partly due to those mistakes. So would I change anything? No, because we survived. And that's to me, is a success. And just being more technical, so I'll give us some of the answers that's useful. It depends on the company, but I think I would have focused more on institutional relationships much earlier. We were just kicking on and building new markets, and Glovo is a company that touches so many hot topics, no? Mobility, future of work, data protection. We set up a company in every single country. We touch so many points with different regulations, and we're very visible as well. So forget Spain, but we're in some countries where our yellow bags are just suddenly all over the place, and the local country government doesn't know how we operate. Where are we? Are we in the cloud? And so I think building those institutional relationships, educating about how Glovo works I think is super important, because the impact, both economic and social, that we have in the country we operate is huge, right? But if we don't go out and tell people beforehand, then we have to wake up with issues. So it's something I think maybe I would have done a little bit earlier.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is what the time allows us, but maybe you guys can catch them later. Thank you for today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.